Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, and business. I can never get the first bit right every time I introduce myself.
It's me
I'm
too.
a,
Believe me too. My intro, because I get so nervous in the beginning. I don't know why.
I don't. I just get tongue tied. I don't know what's going on, but it is Friday here. But I'm welcoming to the show today Ben Reed. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Hey there. How's it going?
Yeah, good. How are you, fellow podcaster?
I would say a wannabe, but yeah, I have 50 episodes out. My niche sales and marketing podcast. If you guys like lead gen and GTM and B2B, that is my niche. Yeah, I'll be humble. It's not a Hermosi like podcast yet.
That's okay. We have to start somewhere, don't we? That's the whole point of it all, right? So
Exactly.
but even crazier, you are so in the past right now, and I am so much more in the future because
Hmm.
you're in Las Vegas, and it's like I think it's like 2:15 p.m. and here I am Friday, and it's 9:15 a.m. That is wild in itself because I could tell you about what Friday is like and what happened Thursday evening. You could tell me about your Thursday, and like we could compare notes on the past.
You know what's funny you say that is I just came back from Brazil. And so I like to live part of my year in Brazil. I love
Oh wow,
Brazilian culture. And Carnival was last week. And their time zone is 5 hours ahead of Pacific Standard, which is what I'm at. And it's 2 hours ahead of Eastern Standard. Like time zones matter. It's just from a lifestyle stress level. I am so much happier in that time zone just because I can wake up at 10 and everybody hasn't even woken up yet. So like I'm all about the time zone discussion.
me too. Me too. It's hard when I, do travel overseas and I'm trying to keep up with the Australian time zone because it's just wild. Like my worst was when I was in South Africa once, and honestly, the calls that I had back in Australia to keep some certain things going, I was just like, it was around the clock, and it's impossible because anywho, yeah, I need a good time zone where everyone is still asleep and you can just do whatever you need to do.
You know.
But it's fun. But let's get into, excuse me, a little bit about you. And you have quite a lot to share with us. So you're the founder and CEO of RevyOps, and I am intrigued how you came up with that name as well. I have a thought, but I'll find out where it came about. It's a GTM RevOps, a data platform that centralizes lead lists, integrations, and reporting so B2B teams can scale outbound without the chaos. You conceived it 2 years ago. It's very, very new. I'll let you explain because it's only just recently you went public in July of 2025.
Mhm.
Super recent, super new. I'll let you explain all of that. But you're also the co-founder of Next Gen Sales Systems. They got the hat on as well. And obviously for your podcast, you're the host of Next Gen Leaders, sorry. And you focus on practical systems for pipeline and revenue. And you previously served, but you are currently Chief Revenue Officer. You're fractional Chief Revenue Officer of Site Navigator, my goodness. And let me just explain a little bit about that. So Chief Revenue Officer versus a financial CFO, you were just telling me, I'm just testing myself here. The difference is, and there is actually a difference, is a Chief Revenue Officer focuses on sales, marketing, and the go-to-market versus a financial officer who focuses purely on the numbers. I'm going to hand it over to you, Ben. Hope I got all
Sure.
that
Yeah.
right.
Thank you. I feel like I need to stop doing some things. I'm too much going on in my life. Yeah. So RevOps is the software. Next Gen is a GTM revenue operations agency. The RevOps is a whole discipline. So it's literally called revenue operations.
Mm.
And most people don't even know what that is. So this gets kind of into the world of sales and marketing acronyms, which are super boring. So I'm not going to bore everybody. But in short, there's a whole discipline of what do you do to go generate revenue?
Mm.
And that question is answered by a chief revenue officer, people within his team, and revenue operations is a subsection of that whole discipline. So think of revenue operations like the technical data management dashboard jockey BI tool using guy in the revenue team. So you got
Mhm.
your salespeople, you got your creative marketers who come up with a bunch of fun videos and ads to run, and then you have a performance marketer who does the analysis and A/B testing on ad creative and landing pages. Revenue operations is somebody who sits more on the sales side,
Mhm.
but also bleeds into the marketing side, where they're able to connect all the systems together and tell a story of what the heck is working and not working. So uh, I can go further, but I'll pause. Do you
No,
have
no,
any questions
no.
about that?
I'd like you to a little bit, to be honest, because I like this whole system. It's like you're interconnecting every aspect of revenue, if you like, of the pieces that make up the revenue. And you just stopped at a really critical point where you're like, I can't remember what you
Well,
just
yeah, yeah. I'll go. I'll keep going.
yeah.
So let me give you a hook. So that sets up the rest of the discussion. Do you, for a fact, deeply understand what you're doing right now across all things that you're doing? And maybe you do because maybe your business isn't, where it was on the before your sale, that big exit that you had. And maybe I don't know, you can tell me. So if you're a smaller founder, this might not be applicable. But if you're at some revenue range, you're probably doing multiple channels. You're probably trying some social media, some podcasts, newsletters, some ads. If that's true for you, I don't know if it is. Do you know precisely what is working the best and what is not working? Do you know where to allocate more budget or pull back on stuff at this moment?
It's a good question because I feel like that's where exactly what I need to focus on right now in terms of, yeah, I do podcasting. I do, I haven't done any newsletters this year, but I purposely though haven't because I was waiting to start them in February. It's going to happen in March. But, there's a lot of different channels that I'm across. But in terms of effort reward and where the actual revenue, strongest revenue is, that's probably where I need to get focused and be clearer. And you're about to say something about, well, that's what this platform system can do to understand where is the most critical effort required or reward so that you're not spreading yourself too thin, but also you're not kind of it's like communication channels, right? You can be across everything, but it's the ability to get focused. Is that what you're about to
Yeah.
tell me?
So the tagline of the website is literally it says know what drives revenue across your outbound tools.
Yeah.
Uh, Now I think like the basic idea is simple is we're doing all this work and we're creating podcasts and content on LinkedIn and we're sending ads. But ultimately, it's very difficult to just know what truly drives results. And if you realized, hey, like there's actually a whole part of what I'm doing that is not optimal, then you could change and you could make a better decision. So, what happens, I think, with marketers and with business people, I put myself in this category, is we default to what is fun and comfortable. And if we can't precisely put our finger on what is moving the needle, we're just like, "Oh, we'll just keep doing what we're doing." And the truth is that there's probably some particular set of activities that you're doing that are causing 98% of your result and you're just blind to that reality, so you spend 80 to 90% of your time on these other activities when if you just eliminated them or downsized them or tested them in different ways, you could actually double or triple revenue over the next 12 months versus what you're doing now. So a simple way to think about it is you have a budget, let's say it's $20,000 a month in marketing and you're allocating that right now. You might have an agency, you might have somebody who does some video editing for you, maybe you have a social media manager. You're spending money. And so the question is, are you spending that money the best way you possibly can? And if the answer is no, it's not just a loss of the budget, it's actually a loss of the return on investment.
Yeah.
So maybe you could get a 10x return on that, right? Maybe a 20x, but you can't know if you're not measuring. And so we solve the problem of answering that question.
So how do you measure it?
That's a deep question. Okay, so
Without getting
think
too
about it like
technical, but it's like, how do you measure it? Mm.
yeah, it's really simple. You connect revenue events, which is won deals, essentially in a CRM. And we're talking about B2B here for anybody who's listening. So
Yeah.
business to business, you're selling typically higher ticket deals, and you have a CRM. And so some people use HubSpot, some people use Salesforce. There's new tools like Adio and Close and smaller tools like that. But you're putting your deals into these CRMs and you're seeing them close. but you're doing a lot of things outside of the CRM too, right? So you might be doing cold email, you might be doing some paid ads, you might be doing some LinkedIn messages, you might be doing some content marketing across the platforms. So there's all these different things happening in the world that never actually make it into the CRM. And those things at the top of the funnel are actually what drive the initial demand into the CRM. And then you go through a sales process, you call the person, you set a meeting, you send a proposal, you win a deal, but you never know where that actually originated from and all the activities that led to it. So, what we do is we simply connect all of those other activities to the thing that happened in the CRM so you can tell a very clean story of,
Mhm.
okay, all of my results are actually coming from this podcast, or all my results are actually coming from a mix between, my LinkedIn messages and that cold email campaign I've been sending every single week. And now you can say, well, I'm actually going to downsize on some of the paid ads I've been doing because my cost to acquire a customer is actually 20% better on the other channels. And so now you've just saved a bunch of money on that spend. You can go deeper into the other channel and you can boost revenue. So it's a way of like turning the knobs on what works.
Yeah, I mean, what comes up for me as well is like you think about these performance-based marketers, like it's very that's very different to obviously chief revenue officer. But is that it, like I mean, because I'm trying to get my head around. Well,
Yeah, listen, let me like paint the picture. So and this is a very easy thing to get lost in because there are, depending upon the size of the company, there are different expectations of what a revenue team looks like. So
yeah,
if you're just a founder by yourself, then it's you. You are the cook, the janitor, you're the
everything.
CRO, the CMO, the CFO.
I love you
Uh,
you called out janitor because you sometimes are the janitor in your own when you're on your own.
yeah, exactly. Think about it less in terms of titles, but more in terms of the function and the role that the
Yeah,
person does in the
that's
company. So in the beginning, you're not doing revenue attribution and analysis the way I'm describing because you're just trying to get a customer, right? It's like the only thing you should be focusing on is, do I have a good offer? Is my pricing correct? Is my packaging relatively correct? And can I fulfill the most basic services? So I actually have a whole course in school. It's called Next Gen Sales Systems. It's a school community. You can sign up and there's this whole free course that I give called Launch Your Offer. And the only thing I tell people to do is go find three beachheads. Go and just don't even tell them what your offer is. Just ask them what their number one problem is and do the mom test. You can Google the mom test right now. It's a free PDF, but it teaches you how to ask questions without biasing people toward your offer. That's a much different stage of a business than, say, somebody who already has 10 clients or somebody who then has, say, 100 clients or 5,000 clients. So I'm giving that context because the answer I give completely changes based upon the stage of business somebody's at.
yeah.
So for me, like, let's just come up with a certain example where I can fit within that. So let's say you have a couple $1 million in revenue. Let's say that were founder led up until this point, which means you've closed the deals and managed the deals, and now you're ready to scale up and you want to go to the next level. It's difficult, as you know, to go from that founder-led type of stuff to now building a sales organization, building a marketing organization, and then scaling up to the next set of revenue, maybe 5 million or 10 million or 20 million. And so in order to do that, typically you professionalize the revenue function. So you hand it off to, say, a sales leader. Now, many founders typically just find a sales guy and they're like, here's a CRM, go play with it. And that might be fine for your first million. That's totally reasonable. At some point, you're gonna have to add more bodies to the seats, right? So you add another salesperson and another salesperson, another marketer. Now there's a coordination problem and there's a measuring problem of, is Becky in marketing and Frank as an SDR actually getting a return on investment for their own money that we're spending on them? So if I give a sales guy, say, a $4,000 a month base to make calls, and then he gets a 10% commission on closed deals and he makes 120,000 a year, he should be, like, chief revenue officer lens would say he should be making 5 times what they call on target earnings,
Mm,
which means he should be returning around $600,000 for his spend. So now if you haven't gone through this whole process before, you're just like, are you closing deals? Are you closing deals? And that's basically your optimization as the founder. What a chief revenue officer does, what a person coming in like me, a fractional, would come into your business and say, okay, look, here's the most basic sales process you need to follow. Here's the most basic metrics that matter. Here's the steps that have to go along the process of closing this deal for your market. Here's what we should be saying across each parts of this funnel. Here's how our sales presentation should go. This is how we should structure along with the marketer
Yeah, right.
the offer. There's a lot of strategic
I was about to say
questions.
strategic just came up for me, and then yeah, it's a strategic role within the team. Ben, how new is this role as like chief revenue officer? Is that like, has it been around for like forever and a day, or is it something that's coming like more and more into businesses now, like in terms of just the need from a ROI perspective? And if I think about where I'm going with this is like, you can have so many different systems and so many different processes, but I see it all the time that it's just so disconnected, and everyone's in their own little silo or their own little world, and no one's looking up as such. And actually what you're talking about here. And so generally you've got this CFO, and no disrespect to the CFO, but they're not necessarily across or understanding the intricacies of what you're talking about here. Yeah, how new is this role? Like, has it been around forever, or is it something that is becoming more and more required in the B2B space?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably like wrong in terms of the exact period of time, but I didn't really start hearing the chief revenue officer role come into the world until around like the 2015s. I might be so wrong on this, by the way. So like, if anybody's like, dude, it's been around since 1985, fine. This I'm not
I
claiming to
haven't
know.
heard it either. That's
Um,
why I'm asking.
I just remember. I'm just going off my own experience. I remember everybody called it VP of Sales, VP of Marketing, Chief
Yeah.
Marketing Officer. But that was typically what I heard, and then I started hearing more and more Chief Revenue Officer come out around 2015s. But again, maybe that's just because of who I circulated with. Maybe it was already
Yeah.
existing. What I've found is that revenue operations as a function is typically in larger businesses. It's typically in like a 20 million plus annual type business because you typically would just have, at a more junior business, a director of sales or like a director of marketing or a marketing manager or something like that. And they would be tasked with the responsibility of, coming up with basic strategy and basic campaigns and basic attribution of saying, did this work? Are we testing right? So the reason you would need a chief revenue officer is because you have multiple subsections below them. You have marketing, you have sales, you might even, in some organizations, have product underneath marketing, which is underneath revenue. And this is a whole debate. Like even in the product world, you have a product manager and then you have like a product designer, you can have a technical leader, like a lead engineer or CTO. But there's a real debate just in the product world of does a product manager, does product sit underneath marketing or tech? If you talk to people in Silicon Valley who are heavily focused on the tech orientation, they're going to say it falls underneath the CTO. If you're in a different part of the world, then you might say, okay, that's actually more of a marketing function to define that product. So I'm giving that. It sounds like very like in the weeds around like what do you call stuff, but there actually really is like an evolution
Well,
of
that's what I'm
how
getting
these.
at. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an evolution of business. Like, I've been talking to people about it. I was actually in a book a while ago, like the need for a chief critical officer in terms of,
Mm.
I can't remember if it was critical or not, but like just from a board perspective, someone coming, it wasn't critical because that's horrible. It was, I can't think of the word now, but like, like coming in and calling it out, like in terms of, from a board perspective, just calling out the BS that can quite often happen on a board at times, and just, what was it? But anyway, and then there was another one, the chief questions officer, like in terms of asking, critical questions and things like that. I just think we're at an interesting point in time in terms of evolution of roles, and not just titles for the sake of titles, but like how we're looking at business from a holistic sense versus just this department does this department does that, and those traditional ways of, I guess, reviewing businesses and how do you optimize businesses to get the ROI AI for it to succeed. I just think it's
Mhm.
really interesting time, and so hence my question.
There's a real quick follow-up on that. What's happened in the GTM world, so GTM stands for go to market. And so in B2B sales and marketing, outbound is a pretty important role, whereas in B2C, it's mostly like paid media and some social. Whereas in B2B, outbound, cold calling, cold LinkedIn, cold email, it's important. And so as a core function of the go to market strategy is list building. And so you have to go and come up with an ideal customer profile. With anybody who hasn't heard of that, it's
I
some people call
see.
it avatars, or personas is another word. So when you have that, it is a deep analysis of demographics, who they are, their sex, their location, their age range, their family, their political affiliations, their psychographics, like what are their core values and what do they believe and what are their dreams. And so you come up with that, and then you come up with a deep list to go prospect. And this is for your cold calls and your LinkedIn. In the past, you would hire a list building team, or you would go to Apollo or Zoom Info and you would just pay your $20,000 subscription. Typically, somebody on the team, like a team lead, would go pull down a list, and then you would start blasting away. Apollo became a $1 billion business on that promise. Log in, go ahead and search for people. There's my list. Let's go send some emails. That was like really the go to market strategy of 2015 to 2022, essentially. In the last several years, the world has been turned on its head with AI, which has really allowed for list building at scale, fully automated. So in the past, you'd hire a team of Filipinos or overseas people at $3, $4 an hour. You would take your list, and they would go in Google Sheets and enrich it for you, and then you'd go load it to your CRM. Now you can use tools like Claude Code, Clay, Cursor, and there's hundreds of these things popping up. And you can go pull your list for a fraction of the cost through APIs, enrich it fully, and be much more precise in your targeting. And all of that's happened the last couple of years, which has then this company, this $1 billion company, unicorn out of Silicon Valley called Clay, coined a term called GTM engineer. And the whole reason this was like a standard kind of marketing play where they're creating a category, which is like in the past, there was never this way to pull from all these tools and work in
Yeah,
one system, right? And so they coined the term and they marketed the hell out of it. And they literally created a whole new category called GTM engineer. And
I
so
love
that's
this
where all
stuff.
these Clay people come from. So it's just an example,
No,
like a
no, no,
very
it's I
recent
love
example.
it. I love it. Like, I'm constantly thinking about the new world and what it looks like, and this is right up my alley. I want to switch it up. I want to talk a little bit
Sure.
about failure. It's complete shift.
I know a lot about that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
what you're talking about, don't we all? Don't we all? But when you booked into the pod, and I always ask this question, I think I might shake up the question a little bit this year. But I asked you what's one unique insight or lived experience when it comes to life leadership and or business, and you said to me, and I love these insights I'm getting. By the way, there's a whole book or something coming out of these. But you said embracing failure as a teacher has been my biggest lesson. It's not about avoiding mistakes, but learning how to pivot and adapt quickly. I'm assuming this is to do with being the founder of a couple of different, well, co-founder and founder of a couple of different businesses, or is this just like, yeah, tell us a little bit about why you gave me that response and your view on failure.
Yeah. So I don't remember saying that, but it sounds like something I would say. So this is being honest.
Everyone does
Uh,
this. They was like, oh, did I actually say that? I'm like, yeah,
That's
you
funny. I'm like,
did.
that's very insightful. So here's my take on failure is that it is a very good thing that I have failed as much as I have failed. Because if I had succeeded even to the fraction of the degree to which I wanted to, I would be an asshole. I'm just going to say that. Like, I think I would have
Love
been
that
arrogant.
response.
And I think that I would have missed out on a lot of nuance around who I am as a being on planet Earth. I think I needed to be humbled. I think I needed to introspect and look at what was causing me to struggle. And I generally have, there's a great book called Carol Dweck, which is The Growth Mindset. And there's
Yeah, I
basically
know
in
her
the
well.
book two options. There's the limited mindset and then there's the growth mindset. And the growth
Yeah,
mindset is all failure is just a means for learning and falling forward and just building up and introspection, reflection. And then the limited mindset is if I fail, it's a reflection on me as a human being and it's bad and I'm shamed. And this is just reconfirming all the things that I thought badly about myself. And so as a result, people that have a limited mindset, there's a whole world. I mean, I'd say most human beings on planet Earth fall into this category that they avoid feedback, they avoid hard things, they avoid taking action because if they do it, it actually proves to themselves that they suck and they're bad, which is like the definition of shame. And so I think I naturally had an inclination towards truth seeking, which is I just wanted to know what I was capable of. And I also wanted to know and I also wanted to succeed. And I found through the process of trying to succeed that I was wrong most of the time, almost embarrassingly wrong. And I also found that it wasn't an intellectual problem. I wasn't limited intellectually. I was limited from good judgment and discernment. And it turns out in business, most choices and decisions are not purely intuitive or logical for whatever reason. There's this great quote of newer levels, newer devils. What works at one phase of the company, like I was talking about with the founders, doesn't work at the different phase that you grow up on. And
Mm,
each phase has some weird counterintuitive trick. You're
so
like, "Wait,
true.
why?" It So for
And
me
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say that is such a pivotal point for me because each phase of a business as you're scaling, you hit a point where you're like, huh? Like it's just, yeah, I don't know. There's something super interesting there. Like I could tell you every phase of the business of, the last business that I scaled in that point you've just like called out. I could tell you every of the 13 years of when I was in that business. It's very interesting that you call that out. Mm.
What was it I mean, for you, was it intuitive once you got to the next stage, or was it like I described? Was it like, "Oh, that's weird. That's I didn't expect that to be the unlock of the next phase," or like, I'm curious on your take.
It was a bit of both, to be honest. There was sometimes I was like, let's use COVID, for example. Like, the business was, we were like flying. We were like, I don't know if you've ever heard the term purple patch. We were like, everything
Mm.
we were touching was purple patches. Everything you're touching is turning into gold. Like, we were winning
I would
everything.
love to experience that once in my life.
Winning everything, like, we were on fire and, like, right just before that March or February of 2020, and then next thing, like, within a second, like, we're hearing about this thing, and I mean, COVID's ages ago now, but, like, we're hearing about this thing overseas, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, that's far away," like, and then next thing it's like, well, so that was there was nothing there, like, it was just like, and then the business just went from zhoosh to zhoosh like that in a heartbeat, and
It's a
scaling up versus scaling down, much prefer the scaling up model. It's the worst. But, and then other times in the business, intuitively, it's like if we don't, it's like I was saying to you pre-show, you and I were talking a little bit quickly about Mercury retrograde. We won't go there because that's a different conversation. But I think there's sometimes where you have a sixth sense or intuition, you go, yeah, okay, like we're going to hit our next, kind of stride, or something in the business is about to go off in a good way or a bad way. I think you can sometimes know them when that's going to happen. And there was times in the business where I was like, all right, we need to pivot here or shift here or do this now. Like, nip the problem in the bud before it becomes a big problem. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm
Yeah, I mean, there's a great Hormozy quote, which is probably not his quote. He just said it, and so now I'm going to say it, which is the number one role of the CEO is to find the biggest constraint in the business and allocate resources to solve for it. And so the number one skill in determining the biggest constraint is discernment and judgment. And so judgment and discernment is really a function of experience and intuition and
Mhm.
taste. And I think the better the CEO and the better the leader, the better they can perceive reality and intuit what's going to happen next to make the
Yeah,
next decision.
yeah,
So I mean, that sounds like what you were doing.
absolutely. Okay, so next question for you. Brazil.
Let
It
me
just
ask one more point
Yeah.
on the failure point because I think it's actually the most
No,
important
good. Okay, keep
thing.
going. Let's keep going with failure.
Yeah, so like I think that one of my colleagues is part of the Tiger 21 group, which is I think you have to have like a net worth of like $10 million to be in there. And the reason I mention that is that you would think, okay, everybody who has a net worth of $10 million or greater, some people have half a billion, $1 billion in that group. They're all super next level, right? They're just super evolved people. They're super capable. They're just like the top of the food chain. And this has always been my intuition. But he confirmed this and he's like, look, the thing I've learned the most after spending time with all these people is that the vast, 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 vast majority of people that reach that level, it happened because of some form of just right place, right time luck. And the problem is that most people who get to that place psychologically, like you reach the end of the rainbow and you're like, oh my God, I did it. You then conclude that you therefore are special and there's something about you, some built-in like je ne sais quoi that just makes you just
Yeah.
glow. You poop rainbows, and it warps a person's sense of reality. And then the trend of that after that first experience is they go on to do additional things. They might change industry, they might start a new venture, and they might try to like angel invest or stock trade or whatever. And very often what happens, it's like winning the lottery. It's like there's a disillusionment period as they come down from it where they realize they make a bunch of bad investments, they fail at their second business, and everyone sees the Elon Musks of the world that just go boom, crush, invest all my money back into it, crush. All of a sudden you're going to Mars. It's like that's one in a 8 billion type of experience, as obviously as we can see. So, I think the reason I bring that up is that I think that there's a great quote. I don't know if it's Reid Hoffman or who said it, but he basically said, everything is luck driven. Oh, no, it's Peter Thiel. He said in like this quote where he was speaking to a group of people at a conference, everything is luck driven. And there's a great quote from Elon Musk where he says, if there's one superpower I could have in the world, it's to be lucky. And so I just think it's just important to know is just, and this is something obvious to me, is that you can be brilliant. You can have everything that you would need to succeed, the right personality type, the right drive, the right network, and you can still fail miserably. And then the guy who's just like, oh, I'm going to push this button, and he just is at the right elevator to go up to meet God at the right time. That's weird. To meet Elon Musk at the right time, he's just there at the right time and he gets put into the right room and he networks and he's on this different path. So I don't know. I say that to say that there's two reasons I say it. One is, don't think that people are above you. There's a great quote from Barack Obama where he says he got into this like world leaders level where he would meet these people and he was just kind of disappointed in the caliber of person. He thought he would meet like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah. Be
the
there in
pearly
the
whites.
moment. Yeah.
And so that's one thing is don't put people above you. But number two is, and I think this is an important idea, is that it's not necessarily good to succeed like that too early. And you might say, well, Ben, you're just rationalizing your own failure. And maybe I am, I don't know. But I do think that the thing that it seems obvious to me after all my own personal development is that and this is kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs type of stuff, is that self-actualization is the top of the heap for a reason. People want to personally develop. There's a big study on values, and the number one value that persists over time for all people is personal development and growth.
Man.
So I just think that I think I just became a person I like to be around. I like being in my own mind at this point because I'm much more stoic, I'm much more reflective, I'm much more measured, I'm much more realistic. Do I have a long way to go? Yes. But if I had succeeded wildly, I just think it would have been a dark place. And it's a very counterintuitive idea, which is don't, be wary what you wish for is where
Well,
like
I
the
agree. Like, no, I mean, I didn't give you my full backstory, but I crashed and burned at the end of my, last big, scale up and, jumped off a cliff, fell off a cliff, and had to work out who the hell I was because my whole identity was attached to eating at whatever cost. And the cost was me. And I didn't know who I was. I was so not present with my family, my friends, everything. Like it was just work, 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 work. And then I had to work out who the hell I was. And so, as much as I hit the top of my game, when you go to the very bottom, you have to, like, I'd failed myself. I'd failed who I was because my soul was screaming at me for so long, but I was just ignoring it. I was just like, get out of the way, sort of thing. And then now, and like listening to you, like, am I where I want to be right now in my business? No, but it's you only evolve your business or whatever you're doing only evolves as much as you're doing. And I think that even what you're talking about with luck as well, I think luck is absolutely that. And sometimes it's like, what did they, so what's that quote about the thief of comparison and joy or whatever, when you compare
Mhm.
yourself to other people? You just can't. Like, you just can't, right? But I think luck is also about, putting yourself in out of your comfort zone and putting yourself in spaces and places where, opportunity can show up. But coming right back to what you just said in terms of you're comfortable with who you are. I said this to someone the other day. I'm at peace. And
Mhm.
I think that is when you are connected within, when everything is interconnected, mind, body, soul, anything is possible. And I think that, and yeah, you still have, fuck up, excuse my language, but like, things still happen, but you're more comfortable with it because you're like, okay, what have I learned out of that? Like, not, you idiot, why would you do that? Instead, it's like, what can I take from that? Which comes right back to how you answered the question for the pod. So I think that it's enlightening being able to continue to evolve, to continue to grow. I wouldn't want it to be any different. And yeah, like, what do people say to you when you fail? Like, you'll look back and reflect, and it'll be one of the best, as much as it was dire at the time, it'll be one of the most best moments of your life. I can't laugh now because I'm like, at the time of some things, I'm like, get me out of here as quickly as possible. But now I look back, I'm like, "No, I had to sit in that. I had to go through that to get to where I am
Mhm.
now." You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. I think that I don't know if this is me thing or if this is a human thing, but I think it is to some degree a human thing, which is that our memory of pain is not great. Now there's trauma, but I mean the acute feeling of the like deep stress and cortisol
Yeah.
spikes of like dealing with like some bullshit, I think is largely gone. And I have this very interesting thing where it's like I suffered across multiple businesses. I mean, just scaled up to a couple $1,000,000, hit a wall on the total addressable market, and then just there was nowhere to go and we collapsed. Launched a business, spent $500,000 and realized I missed the market timing and my unit economics were crushed and I just had to go sit on the beach. You know, those were like career ending experiences for I think some people. And for me, I mean, at the time it felt like that, but I can look back and I can go, oh, that was stupid. And I was like, I think I have literally $30,000 of magnetic eyelashes sitting in some storage unit that I just forgot about, right? I literally don't know where it is. Like it's just like a relic of my past, and I laugh at it at this point. So yeah, I think that there's some level of just letting it go,
Yeah.
and
100%.
yeah.
I love it. Then my final question for you, it's quite interesting you brought up the beach. This is such a formless, intuitive conversation. It's always the way. Brazil, juggle. And the reason I say Brazil and juggling is you said to me at the start of the pod, you spent a lot of half your time in Brazil.
Mhm,
And you talked around, well, loving the time difference, but it's got to be more to Brazil than that. You
mhm.
also seem like, in terms of, you've got a lot going on in terms of, you've got all these different roles you play. You've got two businesses, plus you're a fractional, like, I can imagine you've got lots of energy as well, like me. Hence this conversation is flowing so easily. How do you do it all? And when you go to Brazil, is that the place where you recenter yourself, ground yourself? Like, how do you juggle it all? And how do you ensure, like, coming back to failure,
Mhm.
like, if we keep like running at pace, things do just fall apart. You can't, it's not sustainable. How do you ensure that you get that recovery?
I would say that there's a really good book called Ikigai. Have you read that book?
What's it called?
Ikigai, I think it's Ikigia. Let me just double check.
Yeah, I
It's a
know.
Jap
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I know the term very well. Yeah, yeah.
So it was a whole book, and what they did in this book was they went to Okinawa, Japan, and they went to the northern part of the island where the oldest people on planet Earth all live in like a community of like 2,000 people. And they basically studied these people and interviewed these people and learned from these people. And the book really concluded two key things. Yes, there's diet. Yes, there's some level of physical activity. But the two things that actually mattered most, and this is also covered in the book Outliers as well, but they've studied some. a small, I think it was like someplace in Pennsylvania where there's long living people, that the two primary factors were ikigai, and also the second one was just deep connection and community with people around you. And so these people have like literally community centers, and but it's not like your local, suburban Americanized, westernized community center. It's like a deeply like fun place to be. You want to go hang out with your
Yeah,
buddies,
definitely. Yeah.
uh, and so there's that. Pennsylvania example, they all live in a small farming community where they all get together in a long table and they eat dinner every single Friday and they all go to church on Sunday, and it's a very close connected world. The other piece is ikigai, which is this, everyone has seen the diagram of like it's
Yes.
like a Venn
Yep.
diagram where it overlaps. And it's a form of, your passion, your what you're good at, what people need in the world, what you can make money at. And there's that centered piece where it's your meaningful work that gets you to grow as a human being,
Mm,
and it's a vehicle for your own practice of growth.
mm.
So it's basically go find something that is your ikigai, and never give it up. Even
No.
there's no
Yeah.
retiring, and then also go find community. So that's context. What I found with Brazil is I think that this is cliche to say, but I think there's something deeply wrong with American culture, and I'm speaking as an American, where I live. When I was 19, I started doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I started hanging out with some Brazilians, and I just noticed there was a different vibe.
Mm.
It was just a cool people, chill, laughing, having fun. I'm like, why are these people so nice? Like there's something weird. And so over the next 4 to 5 years, I kept on experiencing these people, and every time I ran into a Brazilian, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a good time. So finally, I just decided, I think when I was 27, that I had to get down to Brazil. And I booked it. I went down. Uh, I had a bunch of friends who were supposed to come with me. We booked some tickets to go down to a carnival in 2017, I think it was. I got on my friends all ditched me. So I was by myself and I went to Brazil by myself and I landed. And the strangest experience happened, a very weird experience, was where I got off the plane and my whole body relaxed. This is like more woo woo. So there is actually a cultural element to it, but it was the weirdest thing. It was like, oh, I feel good. Like, what is that feeling? So for me, there was like an energetic thing
Yeah.
in the
I was
space of
hoping you'd
Brazil.
say. Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a human, like it's like a consciousness thing of people down there, like where they're just all just a different vibe, that it's just a different experience as a human. So I got there and I ended up learning Portuguese over the next couple of years. I traveled there many times. I met my wife in Rio de Janeiro. My
I
wife's
thought you might
Brazilian.
have. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of that to say, I have found the Brazilian culture is, they're about living. They love to be in community. They love to play on the beach and play volleyball and soccer, or football, as the world calls it. And they love to have a caipirinha and hang out. Their whole culture is, they don't go into bars and clubs. They spill out onto the streets. And so every Friday, people are at these botecas where they're just all in the street drinking beer and hanging out. So for all those reasons, it's just a better world to be in for me.
Yeah, your
Uh,
energy shifts as well when you're talking about it. Like, it's interesting. Like, I know for me, like, I'm a type A personality. Like, when I go to places like that, I do feel at home because it's just this ability to get back to reconnecting with ourselves and the ability to be present. Oh my gosh, we could keep talking, Ben, but I am going to let you get back to your day, and I'm going to get back to the rest of your afternoon, and back to my Friday.
Sounds good. It
Ben,
was good to speak with you.
yeah, how do we find out, thank you, and likewise, how do we find out more about you? How do we find out about your pod? How do we find out about RevyOps?
Yeah, if you want to watch more of my podcast, it's Next Gen Sales Systems. You can find it on Spotify or Amazon or any of the major RSS feeds for podcasts. Uh, you can find me on LinkedIn, Benjamin Reed, and RevyOps or Next Gen Sales Systems will find me on LinkedIn too. And then if you have problems around that revenue attribution and you're one of those companies that wants answers, it's just RevyOps.com is my software company. It's
Bye.
RevyOps.com.
I love it. Ben, thank you so much. Best conversation for a Friday, so I really appreciate your time.
Cool. Great. Thanks so much.
Thank
See ya.
you.